Hey, my name is Dan and I have Aspergers Syndrome. So I was diagnosed with Aspergers Syndrome on the 23rd of June 2013 when I was 26 years old. I found that it's not a shock to be diagnosed with autism, but it was a shock to be diagnosed that later on in life. And I feel like there wasn't much available in the 90s to diagnose me. You know, all my life I'd been going through struggles. Like, my parents took me to see child psychologists, took me to see doctors, took me to see, you know, the teachers and the principals in the schools to find out what was going on. Why were my grades lacking? Why wasn't I playing outside with the other kids? Why did I have to have, you know, extracurriculum in different areas? My parents didn't know what was going on. They didn't understand, and they tried their best, but there wasn't a definitive answer back in the 90s. You know, when I was in school, when I was in primary school, I had such fear of social anxiety, I could barely actually get up and go to the actual school. And more importantly, I had a hard time actually getting to school. You know, actually being there in school was difficult. I remember specifically when I was about 8 or 9 years old, all of the class used to go out on a weekly trip to go swimming. But I was so scared of going outside of the classroom and getting on a bus with a bunch of kids and then going to the swimming pool and having that same realization that I'm in a swimming pool with loads of kids, that they made reasonable adjustments for me to stay in the classroom on my own. You know, it was the 90s. And so when everyone went to the sports centre to go swimming, I was left in the classroom to my own devices, and I like that. I like being on my own. I like that peace and quiet. It gave me chill time away from the other kids, and I get to just sit in the reading corner and just chill out, really. And that was the idea of what I did, and I like that. But you know, nobody thought it was that strange because I was always like that. You know, I was that strange kid. Another time was, I remember specifically not being able to go outside in the playground at playtime and break times because, you know, having to go outside and be with other kids is such a difficult thing. When it was break time or lunchtime, my parents made a deal with the school teachers that I was able to sit indoors and play on the computers because I've always been obsessed with computers. So that kind of worked really well. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with space, science, and computers and robotics and electronics and chemistry. I was so taken by the idea of trying to make cool stuff, and creativity was just like oozing out of me. My parents bought me loads of chemistry kits and loads of like electronic kits so I could make my own radios, and then I ended up getting really into CB radios. Then I was actually really into robotics. I wanted to build a robot, and then a guy that I knew, a dyslexic kid from down the road, me and him built like a robot, a robot that you would normally see on like Robot Wars. You know, it was like basically like an RC car that we kind of adapted, added things onto, and I was always into this. We also created extension aerials for walkie-talkies. You know, you get those like cheap like dollar store walkie-talkies and like £1 in the pound shop walkie-talkies, and we developed an aerial that we could attach to that would increase the range by a mile at least, which was just amazing. And I loved that. I was just so into that, and I loved computers, but we weren't fortunate to have a computer at home at the time when I was a child, so the only access I had was in school. And the good thing about it was, not going outside of the playground, I got to play with computers in school. Now, when I was in that primary school age, you know, between the ages of like 5 and maybe 10, my parents took me to see a child psychologist, and they said that I had, you know, dyslexia. They also said I had like short-term memory loss, that I was just quite an intense kid. I was overly shy. I had agoraphobia. There was a bunch of different kind of conditions that they labeled me with, but none of them was autism. And at the time, it was because autism wasn't something that they knew about. You know, it wasn't something that was in, you know, a remote town in Wales in the United Kingdom. You know, it was when Kanner and Asperger were doing his research, and that was way different timing to when they started diagnosing it in the 90s in America. So I was left out of that kind of ability to have help, or somebody who understood exactly what was going on, and I found that difficult. But then it went up a notch. When I was in primary school, my parents used to walk me to and from school, and I loved this, and I felt a really deep sense of calm when I was with my parents, and I liked that because I felt comfortable and safe. But as soon as they left, I felt like I'd just been, you know, stripped naked and thrown into an ice cold bath of water, and I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't focus. I was so anxious in class that I couldn't focus on my work, so my grades dipped in primary school. I couldn't communicate with my peers because like I had so much pent-up anxiety, and also the communication. You know, I was thinking about robotics and science, and my peers just wanted to talk about football and like just, I don't know, hanging out and kissing girls and stuff, and I didn't care care at all for those things. I wanted to just, I don't know, just do me and just, I don't know, just do electronics and I don't know, I was just super into science and nobody else was. I also used to get in a lot of trouble during that period because the teachers would try and say stuff, and I was more educated in certain fields of like, I don't know, I was really obsessed with UFOs and aliens, and that led me on to reading about the pyramids and in science in general, and I always used to correct the teachers, and because I think in a very logical way, and because I was thinking very literal, my parents had to keep coming into the school and speaking with the teachers to say like, why is Dan displaying this, and why is Dan saying that, and why is he correcting the teachers, and he shouldn't be doing that. And yeah, it kind of felt like they weren't happy with the fact that I was correcting them. You know, here's this like 7 to 8 year old kid correcting your ability to teach, and I think they took offense to that. I didn't know at the time. This is kind of later on in life when I figured this out. But like I was saying, my parents used to walk me to and from the school, which I loved, but then I didn't actually go to the school, so I used to kind of make up excuses to go home because I felt sick and I didn't want to go in and stuff, and I felt way more secure in my room with my stuff, and that's how it always was. Now, when I went to high school, there was a different kind of tone. You know, you can't have kids between, 12 and 16 getting their parents walking them to and from school when, the school's only like 2 or 3 blocks away from your house. So this was a difficult time. So when I first started high school, I was in my first home, which was the home I grew up in, and it was about 2 or 3 blocks away from the house. And my parents couldn't walk me to and from school because they were working and stuff, so I had to walk with my siblings, and they were only in the school for a year. So it was really difficult. One of the most difficult times of my life was getting to and from high school for a few months in that first year of high school. It was just so overwhelming. I just felt like, how can I explain it? I don't know if you ever seen the movie Beetlejuice, where they open the door, the two characters are dead, and then they say they want to go outside, and the Beetlejuice says you can't go outside because when you open the door it's like a huge sand pit and these snakes are going to eat you. And that's exactly what it was like, outside, between being in school and being in my home, which are like 2 bases, actually being outside in public was like, without my parents or anybody I knew, was just like I was drowning in like this sea of sand, and it was just horrible. It was like probably the worst experience of my life to date with the condition, so that was hard. But what happened was my parents were getting a bit annoyed. They were like, well, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just go to school? You have to learn to walk to school on your own. You can't be this like, worried about going to school. And they didn't understand it. And I guess it was getting to the end of their tether, and their patience were wearing thin because they didn't know. They had no answers. No doctors were telling them what was wrong with me, and they were just like, oh, well, this is Dan. And it must have really been a hard time for my parents as well. But then something quite interesting happened. Although traumatic, it was quite good in a way. My family lost the family business. It imploded, and then we lost the house we were living in, which my parents owned, and then we moved into like state accommodation or council accommodation here in the UK. And then you hit with welfare. It was like a different situation, and then I had to move into a room with my brother, and we all like moved into this like crazy small house compared to the house we were living in that we actually owned, and then he was just in like a rough neighborhood. But my dad grew up in this neighborhood, and it was kind of like he knew everybody in it, so the whole street, they were really friendly. It was rough as hell, but they were really friendly. They were really nice, and they'd do anything for you, and it was kind of nice. So I got to feel a sense of, because my dad was born in that street and he knew everybody in there, it kind of extended my house outside onto the street, and that was super revolutionary, because I was able to then like go outside and play my bike in the street, or like learn to skateboard, which I now love, in the street. But the cool thing was the house was situated back to back with the high school. So this made the commute to high school very, very easy. I just walked out of my door, jumped over the back wall of our house, and I was in the school. That's how close it was. Like literally, the school boundary wall was the wall to my garden. So it was really good. And that changed my life, my relationship with school. And without that change, I'm not sure how I would have dealt with school. But it was really good. I loved that we had the ability to do that, and we had, making light of a dark situation. But, that was cool. And I managed to actually not thrive in school, but find my niche. I was able to then go into school and play music, and I started playing music with some people in school, and music was to me like numbers is. Like music and numbers are so the same, and I love music, so I taught myself to play like, I don't know, 7 or 8 just different instruments, and I joined a band, and I started singing, and like, I love music. So music became my passion, because where science, I couldn't get it academically because none of the teachers in the school understood my need or my educational learning type they couldn't teach me science, so I missed out on all the science stuff that I wanted to do. So that was kind of difficult. But then if we fast forward right to my mid-20s or my late 20s, I was actually trying to figure out what was going on in my life, and I had a huge meltdown in work. And then because they changed my desk around, basically we had a desk, we were all the same, and it was the first proper big job I had, you know, a grown-up kind of job. And then they changed my desk around, they were moving everything, and I got overwhelmed, I had a huge meltdown, like a huge breakdown, and then they were like, oh my god, what's going on with Dan? And then they sent me to therapy, and then my therapist and my girlfriend's mother, actually, who is a mental health nurse, suggested that I had autism. And then somebody else I know who has a kid on the spectrum also said, hey, you know, you may be on the spectrum because of this. So then I was formally diagnosed with Aspergers Syndrome, OCD, ADHD and dyslexia. The dyslexia one came earlier than the others, but they all kind of came into this nice little package. That was revolutionary. It changed my outlook on what I needed to do, because now I had an idea of what I needed to conquer. You know, what is autism? What is Asperger's? And then I had a basis of what was going on. So then I was able to kind of try and conquer stuff, like starting this YouTube channel. The YouTube channel that you're watching this video on right now was the result of me wanting to help educate people, because when I was diagnosed, I went online and Googled like help for Asperger's Syndrome. What is Asperger's Syndrome? What are some of the traits of Asperger's Syndrome? Are there Asperger's people that I don't know of, you know, that live close to me? All this stuff, and I couldn't really find information on it. So this is why I made the AspieWorld YouTube channel. So in a nutshell, it was quite liberating getting a diagnosis, and I think it helped tremendously. And from that diagnosis, I then went on to doing an access to science course where I aced the maths and the science, and then I got accepted to do a degree in chemistry, and I am now a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. I did a degree in chemistry, and I love every second of it. And it was just amazing. My life took me in kind of like supercharged speed after I got my diagnosis, because I was able to focus on things and I wasn't worried about why I was different. And I feel like that is super important for anybody who may be going through the same struggles I am now. So if you suggest that maybe you have autism, or what is autism, or, you know, I just wish you could share this video with somebody who may be able to find benefit from this, or maybe able to find comfort in this, to know that they're not, you know, weird or different. They're just wired a bit differently, and that's cool. So as this video is released on World Autism Awareness Day, I am actually raising money for the National Autistic Society, who are what I class as the gold standard in autism awareness and acceptance and help. And you can do that by clicking the link in the description below to donate to the National Autistic Society, or you can buy one of the promotional t-shirts which I've created, and all the profits are going to go to the National Autistic Society charity fund, because I wanted to raise money for them. So if you could donate and you have the ability to, or you want to buy a t-shirt and donate that way, then the links are in the description below, so please check them out. And thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and watch another video from me which is presented here, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.